Hello, hello, hello. How are you guys doing this evening? It is 3:59 a.m. It's really late. Or really early. Depending on how you look at it, I guess. But for me, it's really late. I went to bed early last night. I went to my meeting, and then I came home, and I was just, like, exhausted. And, so I went to bed, and then Alex came to bed right after I did, because he came home from work tonight. He was so tired. In fact, like, he went to bed, like, as soon as he got home, and slept probably from, like, I don't know, like, 5:30 to, like, 9:30, because I, texted him when I was leaving the meeting, and he had just gotten up, and I said, are you gonna sleep through the night? Because he was really, really exhausted from his weekend, and he was like, no, I think I'm gonna get up for just a little bit. Well, he stayed up for just a little bit, and watched some TV, and then he went back to bed. So, I went to bed too, and I was planning on only sleeping for an hour, and then I was gonna get up and vlog, and listen to my audiobook for an hour. My phone is charged. I was gonna charge my phone, but my phone is charged. And then I was gonna vlog for an hour. And then I was gonna listen to my audiobook for an hour, and I was gonna go to bed. That didn't happen because I didn't end up getting up. That water tastes so good. I ended up sleeping. Well, I went to bed about 10:30, and I slept literally till about 10 minutes ago. So, Lil Boo Radley and Lil Tucker were so sweet. They were all snuggled in, warm in the bed, and they were so cute. So anyway, yeah. So, I got a lot of sleep today. I don't know. I have my training tomorrow at 1. I think I'm going to text her. She gets in there really, really early. I think she gets in there. I probably will still be up, you know, if I vlog for an hour. I mean, at this point, I don't know when I'll be able to fall back asleep, but I think she gets in there at like 5. I may text her and see if she can get me in there earlier. And then I might try to go in this morning if she can. And then come home and film videos, and then like take a nap. So like I have like the evening to do what I want to do tonight. Because if I go home and I go back to bed, I'll get up and I'll be so groggy. So anyway, now that I've, you know, gotten like 5 hours of sleep or something like that. So anyway, how are you guys doing? I might actually start doing that anyway. I might actually start seeing if I can go in early for my appointments. But, how are you guys doing today? I had a good day today. I had to run like 1,000 errands because today was like my, you know, first full day back in Indianapolis. I had all this stuff to do, and then I had to go pick up the dogs, but I had to wait until the afternoon because they were getting baths and nail trims. They smelled so good, and they had little bandanas on when they came home. They were so sweet, and it was so funny because they were so tired when I picked them up. Tanya said they had just ran all weekend long, and so they just like slept the whole way home, and then they got home and they like went straight upstairs to bed and jumped on the bed and were like, well, whenever they come home, they always like roll around on their backs like forever. They're like, it's so funny. They do this whole thing and they like run around they get on the bed and then they run around the bed and then they rub their backs up and then they kind of just like fall asleep. It's so cute. Tanya said they went pretty much non-stop the whole weekend. They have so much fun at the kennel. So anyway, yeah, and then Alex came home and I hung out with Alex for a little bit, and then I was like uploading some videos and stuff. I actually made a Peterisms video and it didn't get uploaded in time before I left for my meeting, and so I was going to post it when I came back, and the time I got back was about 10 o'clock, and I was like, whatever, I'll just post it tomorrow, so I'm going to post that tomorrow. But, went to the meeting tonight, and I met with Tanya for a little bit afterwards. It was good to see Tanya. Oh. It was a good meeting. Saw a lot of my friends. What else? That was about it. My day was just kind of... It wasn't like a big deal day or anything like that. Listened to some of my audiobook today. I really, really like it. It's a slow book. Like, the pacing of it is slow, the story, but not slow as in boring. Like, it's just a slow story. And I'm listening to Where the Crawdads Sang by Delia Owens, and it's just a really beautiful story to listen to. I didn't listen to any of it when I was on, like, vacation this weekend. I wish I had. I wish I was a little bit further along in the book, but I think I just hit, like, it's like 9 hours long, and I think I just hit, like, the 4th hour or something like that, or, like, I just finished the 4th hour. It goes back and forth between, like, I think it's, like, 1969 and, like, when she's growing up. It goes all the way back. The only thing is that I would say, I notice this about a lot of writers. I mean, there's not really like 100, you know, original ideas out there. It's just like you kind of reinvent, but you can't really reinvent the wheel, you know. But like, when you're reading something and it's so specifically like an idea from another book or story, it's very obvious, right? And so you can tell who her influences are. Like, Harper Lee, who wrote To Kill a Mockingbird, is definitely one of her influences. I mean, there's like intonations of things that the main character Kaya says that are like almost identical to like things that Scout said in To Kill a Mockingbird. Almost literally identical. And then it's interesting because she learns to read in the book, and it's very, very similar to when Miss Seeley learned to read in Alice Walker's Color Purple. And I mean, it's almost identical. Even like the talking about numbers and things. And I mean, I guess it's not a stupid thing to do to take two of the, you know, most highly acclaimed novels of all time and put ideas into your book. And I'm not necessarily saying that she did that, but like, I mean, to ask her, like, have you read To Kill a Mockingbird? Have you, you know, read The Color Purple or seen either one of the movies? Because you can see the movies too, and the ideas are in there. But not that the whole idea of somebody that doesn't know how to read, learning to read is like a new concept. I mean, it's been in a lot of books, right? But the way that it happens is very, very similar. And some of the things that she says are very similar to The Color Purple as well. And I think part of the problem is that when you take, I mean, Scout from To Kill a Mockingbird and Miss Seeley from Color Purple are two very, very specific characters. I mean, they have a very specific way, just to themselves, of how they say things. And, you know, Scout says things in To Kill a Mockingbird that you've never heard. The way that she says it, the way that she uses words. that you've never heard another character use. And the same with, Miss Seeley. They're two of the most beautiful characters ever written. And to then kind of borrow those nuances, because they're two of my favorite books of life, it feels unoriginal. That would be my only criticism. But the thing is that she develops this character, Kaya, that Kaya is so original in her, well, kind of. I mean, I feel like I've read a character similar to her before. But like the background story of hers is so original and so different that, like, if you're not looking for it, I mean, I read with a critical eye. So if you're not looking for it, you wouldn't notice it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But Kaya is such an individual, beautiful character in her own right. There's just pieces of her that don't feel original to me. I don't know. There was something that she said, I was listening to it, and I was like, it was almost like, I felt like it was a line from To Kill a Mockingbird. Like, that's how unoriginal it was. I was like, was that a line in To Kill a Mockingbird? I mean, surely she wouldn't just lift a line straight from To Kill a Mockingbird, And then there was something else that she said, and I was like, after I had kind of like figured out, like, oh, this kind of feels like it's picked and pulled from several different books, I was like, did Miss Seeley say that? Like, it feels like Miss Seeley said that. And, so I don't know, but it's beautifully written. It's just, I'm not obviously going to complain about a book that reminds me of two of my favorite books of life, I was, when I was younger, I was planning to get my master's degree in English. I thought I might teach on the college level. It's kind of my plan. That didn't turn out that way. And, but to get into master's level programs for English, you have to take the GRE. And, which I think is the graduate requirement exam or something, but anyway. And then you take like the basic exam, and then you take like the subject exam. And like your subject exam you take, and I don't even know if they do this today. I'm assuming that they still do. I haven't heard anybody talk about it in years. But like my friend, was going into psychology, and so she took the psychology subject exam, and I took like the English subject exam, okay? And it's 400 questions. And the only question that I knew for a fact was about, I thought it was going to be a lot about literature, and it wasn't. It was about all kinds of things. The only question I knew out of 400 for a fact that I got right was about The Color Purple. It was the only one I knew for a fact on there. Somebody waiting outside Einstein Brothers. I wonder what time they open. But anyway, it's still a beautiful book. And it's, I would say this too, I mean, it's not like it's flooded with that kind of stuff. Like, I mean, after you get past, if you're somebody that's, like, if you read a lot, like Tanya reads a lot, right? And she even said that. She's like, it reminds me of a lot of different things. She was like, I liked it. She was like, but it reminded me of a lot of different things. But once you get past that, like, the characters in the story are so good that it just doesn't really matter. It's so enjoyable to read. I mean, as of right now, it's a 5 out of 5 for me, just on enjoyment level and relaxation level and all of that. Do you hear the little birdies out there? Oh. What else? It's interesting driving all over the city of Indianapolis, like the different gas prices. Like over here, unleaded was $2.17, and then over where I go to Meyer, it was like last night was $1.80 something. It's kind of a big difference, don't you think? And then we'll just kind of do, well, as I'm driving, we'll see what we notice as far as the different prices, changes. I don't really have a whole lot going on this week at all. Just kind of nice. Oh, I will say this. I'm watching 13 Reasons Why. And, which they did this huge, before the whole series, they did this huge trigger warning thing where they all sat down, like the cast sat down. I thought it was a really interesting and well put together trigger warning, the way that they did it. So I'm watching 13 Reasons Why, the 3rd season, and I really like it. I think it ended after this season. I'm almost positive. They either have one more season or it ended after the 3rd season. But I do kind of feel like, how long are you... I mean, I like watching the show. I think the writers of the TV show, like, know how to put a good story together. But it kind of seems like it needs to end. I mean, it feels like... Well, like, I was watching it a little bit tonight. This was like when I got home from 10 to 10:30. I was like watching just a couple minutes of it. And I was like, there was a scene, if you watch it, there was a scene when, like, I don't know. I understand that it's for the purpose of the show, right? But, like, the stuff that these kids have going on in their lives, is very, very serious. Like, extremely serious, right? And 2, mind you, I'm only on the 2nd episode. And 2, like, kind of unrealistic that any high school kids would be, like, dealing with all of this kind of stuff. There's like a character in the storyline that had, like, an incident happen. I don't want to ruin it for anybody. And then, like, possible mental health issues. And they're trying to help him. And so this other character comes up with this whole story, like, this whole, like, template of, like, his schedule and where people are going to take him. And they're going to take him from class to class. And then they're going to, you know, take him to school and drop him off and pick him up and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, but the parents are this is the thing that kills me, is, like, the parents who, if you've watched the previous 2 seasons, well, even in this season, are, like, in this kid's life, are apparently completely oblivious to the fact that they're doing this for him and that anything is wrong whatsoever. And I don't know, it's just like they have these very serious conversations about, like, the whole storyline is... It's a lot. I honestly, in all honesty, I don't know that, like, I think, like, 16, 17, 15, I think, like, my 15, if I had a 15, 16, 17-year-old, I'd be like, okay, for them to watch it, as long as we were, like, discussing it. But I think, like, younger than that, I would probably be concerned if my child was watching it, in all honesty. Like, there's a lot of real serious conversations had in the show. I don't know. I feel like it opens a lot of questions to things, and not necessarily in a good way. Like, it's hard to watch just as a TV show and not be like, there's a lot being discussed here. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of really serious issues and topics. like, somebody compared it to Pretty Little Liars, and I watched, like, the whole first season of Pretty Little Liars and part of the second, and while there were a lot of, like, big topics that were discussed as well, it wasn't, like, topics like this. I mean, it just wasn't. It's just a lot. There's a lot. So, but I'm enjoying watching it, having watched the other 2 seasons. It's just heavy, you know? I kind of, like, watch a little bit of it, and then, like, I find it, like, kind of weighing on me a little bit, like, me thinking about it. I don't know. There's elements of it that remind me of Karen McManus's One of Us is Lying, but her book had serious topics in it too. She just came out with a sequel to it. I have the sequel. It's probably what I'm going to listen to next. I can't remember what the sequel is called. One of Us is Found Out or something. I don't know. But anyway, I read her. One of Us is Lying. I think the second book she wrote was called Two Can Keep a Secret, which wasn't about that at all. Had nothing to do with that series. One of Us is Lying is about a group of kids, and they're in this room for detention after school, and none of them are supposed to be there. Like, the reason that they're there, like, was because of their cell phones or something, and none of them actually, one of them, I think, actually did what they were supposed. There was, like, 6 of them in the room, and only, like, one of them did something to actually be there. Like, they all got in trouble for their cell phones, like, having their cell phones. And, then this kid has, like, an allergic reaction or something, I can't remember, like, he's drinking water, and he has, like, allergic reaction to something, and he dies. This is, like, in the first chapter. So, it's this mystery of, like, who in that room killed him, right? Which I don't even remember who did, actually, now. I don't remember what happened at the end of it. That's part of the problem with these, like, sequels coming out so much later that you have to understand. Like, young adult is really great at doing cliffhanger sequels, meaning that they film these, they do these books, and then they leave you with a cliffhanger, and then you don't remember, and it comes out, like, a year later, and they don't really do, like, you know, like, when I was watching 13 Reasons Why, they did, like, the beginning, like, they did the season recap from the, you know, previous 2 seasons. But, like, when you read a book, there's not necessarily a season recap. I don't remember who. And even if you told me, like, so-and-so killed him, like, that would mean nothing to me because it's been so long. I think I read that book a year ago. I think I read it a year ago, January. That would mean nothing to me because I don't remember those characters. Like, as soon as I start reading it again, I'll start remembering the characters. Like, I remember somebody came out. I remember that was one. And then there was somebody that was having a secret relationship. And then there was a girl that was, like, a straight-A student, class president type. I think her name was, like, Brownwyn or something like that. But, like, it was at the end. But she's, like, the only one that I, like, really, really remember. And then there was, like, the girlfriend of, like, the jock, of, like, the lead football player. And she had, like, secrets. I don't know. But I remember when I finished it, I don't remember it having, like, a cliffhanger. I remember it, like, kind of ending cleanly. But I remember thinking to myself or saying, you know, even in, like, maybe a review video, that I wish that she would, like, write a sequel, that I liked the characters, it was interesting to read. A lot of people didn't like the book. A lot of the people thought the book was cheesy. I mean, it totally was cheesy, but it wasn't as cheesy as some other books that I read. Like, there's a lot of, like, well, there's a lot of cheesy books, period, but young adult seems to, like, really kind of corner the market on it. Although, like, some books that look like they'll be cheesy are actually not that bad. Like, I read this book a couple years ago. It's since I've been on BookTube, and it was called The List. I got it at like Target or something, and the cover of it was so bad. It was like a photograph of this girl like sitting by the lockers or whatever. If the cover was different, it would have been taken more seriously. But anyway, the book was about, because I remember stuff like this happening when I was in high school. The book was about this list that came out every year, and it was like the top 2 like hottest senior, or the top hottest, the hottest senior, the hottest junior, the hottest sophomore, and the hottest freshman, and then like the ugliest of all of them too. Okay, it was like one of those lists, like hot or not lists, and it basically like either made or destroyed somebody's life, right? Well, when I read this book, I thought, like, I got it, and I thought, oh, this will be an interesting read, but I thought it would be, like, that was when I was reading tons of young adult. Well, maybe I read it when I was writing my book, because I read, like, tons of young adult when I was writing my book, because my book was young adult. And I thought, oh, this will be fun, this will be a funny read, right? Like, how, like, it's gonna be very Mean Girls-ish. And it really wasn't. It was really well done. I was really surprised in how they kind of tackled the issues, and how the girls that, like, there was like one girl on like, well, there was some serious stuff that happened. I shouldn't speak to it because I don't really remember. But that being the hottest girl was not necessarily the blessing, and being considered like the ugly girl was like, there was one girl that, like, I can't remember, that she, like, her sister was like the hottest girl, and like she, like, as a senior, and she was like the ugliest girl as like a sophomore or something like that. But it was really about like who she was as a person, and she didn't really care if she fell on some list. I don't know, the book was really good. It was really interesting as far as like building self-confidence and not like defining ourselves by being on some list, or, you know, by somebody else's acceptance or validation. And it was really interesting, and it kind of addressed the issues like firsthand. Gas over here is $2.09. So 10 cents cheaper than the other place almost. But it was interesting in how they addressed those topics, you know. I think we live in a world too where it's like we have to be very, very careful about TV or movies or books, you know, about what we're putting out there in the world. Because, I mean, if you really think about this, like the whole idea of a trigger warning, we've come like, well, we've really come a long way, okay? And I don't know really how I feel about it, honestly. Like I think it's important for there to be trigger warnings on stuff, but I don't really know what I think it achieves. Like, I think that Mel and I were actually talking about this the other night, because I said to her, you know, like, I can't remember what we were talking about. We were talking about something to do with trigger warnings. I don't know if we were talking about it on the vlog, and then we continued our conversation afterwards. But I said, you know, it almost kind of seems like it's a, like, protective measure of the author or the TV show or the movie, if that makes sense. You know, like, they don't want to be responsible for something, and somebody should do something. And I was like, but I don't know that I really feel like, and I can only relate it for in my, you know, personal experience, I can only relate it to addiction. And I said, I don't know that there's any book, movie, or TV show out there that would really make me want to use or drink if I didn't already. Which I agree with, to some degree, right? But when I was in early sobriety, there were some movies that I think that had I watched, I think they would have, like, I just don't think they would have been great movies for me to watch in early sobriety. You know, they had been movies that, like, I had watched when I was drinking, like Thelma and Louise. And that's what the example I gave to her, you know? I just don't think that they would have been really good movies for me to watch in early sobriety. I think they would have made me want to drink, you know. The movie The Morning After with Jane Fonda. which is she's a horrible drunk in the movie. But I kind of liked watching movies of desperation where they would just drink and drink and drink. Like, those were the movies I liked. So if I had watched that movie when I was in early sobriety, I think it might have made me want to. It wouldn't have made me, like, it wouldn't have forced a hand, but I think it would have put the thought in my head. And I don't honestly remember, like, what I did with movies like that. You know, if I watched them, if I didn't watch them, or whatever. That movie's been in my head a lot lately. The Morning After. I don't know why. If you've never seen it, it's a fantastic movie. It's really, really well done. And probably one of Jane Fonda's least talked about movies. She plays this woman that used to be, it takes place in the 80s, because that's when it was filmed. She plays this woman that used to be an actress, and she was like, how does she say it in the movie? She's like, do you remember, she was supposed to be like the next big so-and-so, and she's telling this guy that, and he goes, who? And she goes, exactly. I was supposed to be somebody. I was supposed to be the next big somebody that nobody even knew Hollywood was missing. And so she's kind of like this woman that, like, came to Hollywood and was like, you know, who's are for like 2 seconds, and then that was it, you know. And at one point she was married to this guy who was a hairstylist that, like, kind of like on the level of like Jose Bear. Do you remember him back in the day? And who was that guy that's like a fantastic actor? I can't remember his name. He used to be in a lot of stuff back then. I don't even know if he's still alive, honestly. But so she wakes up in bed, and she doesn't know who the person is next to her, and she's in this apartment, and she doesn't know where she's at, and she's out in the middle of nowhere, and he's, like, been stabbed, and she's in bed with him, and she blacks out drinks, and so she doesn't remember what happened, and so she thinks she killed this guy, and it's her basically on the run. And so she's, like, trying to get out of town, and she's, like, on the run from these people at the airport, and she gets into this guy's car, and it's Jeff Bridges. And so it's kind of like this relationship that they build, but he's, like, trying to help her figure out, like, who, like, if she murdered this guy or if somebody else did. It's really, really, it's really a good movie. The Morning After, if you've never seen it. There's got to be a morning after. Did you guys ever see the Poseidon Adventure? Not the new Poseidon Adventure. That new Poseidon Adventure sucked. The old Poseidon Adventure. That movie was so good. Do you know that I could probably just talk, somebody the other day was like, I love your, like, 80s movies references and 80s television show references. Do you know I could just sit and talk about 80s TV shows and movies forever? Okay, when I was growing up, 2 of my favorite movies, true story, Poseidon Adventure, the one with Shelley Winters, and, are you ready for it? Do you remember Devastation movies? I mean, like, they were such a big deal back in the day. Like Earthquake and all those movies, and Airport. Okay, are you ready? Not Airplane. Not to be confused with Airplane, and Don't Call Me Shirley. The Towering Inferno was one of my favorite movies back in the day. I loved it. If you've never seen The Towering Inferno, it was about this building that was built in Los Angeles. And so they're having this, like, huge gala on, like, the top floor. It's this huge skyscraper building that people are going to live in. And it catches on fire. And they have to get all of these people out. At one point, they're, like, have this rope from building to building. And this woman's, like, in this, like, thing. And she's going across it. And it's like, I haven't watched that in a long time either. I think, what's his name? The guy with this, I hate saying this because he was such a fantastic actor. My mom loved me. My mom loved me. Well, of course my mom loved me, but my mom loved him. If she was here right now, she'd be like Peter, the guy with the salad dressing. Because I was going to say the guy with the salad dressing. What's his name? Richard Newman. Why can't I think of his name? You know, the guy that, you know I'm talking about. Why can't I think of his name? Paul Newman. Paul Newman? Yeah, I think so. But he played like the firefighter in it, and he was like the sexy actor firefighter of the time. That's how old the movie is. Okay, just to put that in perspective for you. It came out in like the 70s, but I loved that movie. I can hear the music in my head right now as I'm telling the story. It's like 3 hours long. Those movies were so long back in the day, and I loved them. Do you remember when movies had intermissions, like in the middle of it? Gone with the Wind. Gone with the Wind has an intermission in it. If you watch it, like on DVD, I loved that movie when I was a kid, and I loved, oh my God, I wanted to be Scarlett O'Hara so bad. I did. I wanted to be her so bad. And, I used to do that line with the turnip. In our library. I told my mom that I would like practice because, you know, I was gonna like do I had to have a monologue when I was gonna because I was gonna be an actor in Hollywood. That was my plan. I mean, can you imagine this just like 8-year-old kid doing a Scarlett O'Hara monologue? My mom totally went through it. I mean, she went with it and everything. She was like, oh yeah, that was really good. I probably did it for my dad too. I did make the best 8-year-old Scarlett O'Hara you'd ever seen, too. I used to sit in our library for hours, and we had this huge, so if you haven't heard me describe the house that I grew in, we had like, the house I grew up in was really unique. My parents hired a builder, and they drew the blueprints themselves and built the house. And actually there's a vlog on here where I drive by the house, and it's real funny because the daughter of my neighbor when I was growing up, like her daughter that was like in high school when I was a little kid, she bought the house across the street from her mom. So when I'm driving down the street showing the house, who my mom stayed friends with till like my mom died. So when I'm driving down the street, she stops me and she's like, sir, like, can you tell us why you're driving down our street filming? And I was like, I was like, it's Peter, Monn. And she was like, oh my God. And she was like, so it's really cool video. I'm glad I have, I don't know which vlog it is, but I'm glad I have it out there. So anyway, I grew up in a really neat street. I mean, we had woods all around us. We had a creek. And so when you came in, we had this huge wooden door, really thick, with like, what do you call it? Stained glass windows in it. And then when you came in, it was like church, like old school church slate flooring. And the whole like entryway and the staircase that went up like right when you came in. And to the right were French doors that when you opened them, you stepped down into the library. And the library was literally a library. It was cathedral ceilings, and every wall was floor to ceiling bookshelves. And it was very, very cool. And every bookshelf was packed. And then in the corner was this huge stereo system, like old school stereo system, you know. And that chair that I have in my bedroom, that black chair with the black ottoman, the black and leather chrome chair on an ottoman, and a huge fireplace. So we had a living room that, like, if you came into the entryway, you turned left into the living room. And the living room was all, well, I would call it burgundy and like baby blue. I guess that is what it was. It was all burgundy and baby blue, and had like this huge oriental carpet and this really cool fireplace, and it had window seat in there, and it had the secretary desk that I have in my house now. But anyway, and then to the right was this huge fireplace. So that fireplace was the fireplace at the Union, I think the Union Hall, it was either the Union Hall or the Fiji House, but I think it was the Union Hall. Not the Union, yeah, the Union Hall, where my parents had met. And to the left, the living room, the fireplace was an exact replica of the Pi-Fi house, because my mom was a Pi-Fi, the Pi-Fi house fireplace. And my dad actually has the same fireplace that we had in the library. He had he had the same guy build his house that he lives in now. My dad lives in now. And he had that fireplace rebuilt with limestone from Bloomington, where the original limestone. If you ever watched the movie Breaking Away, somebody asked me if I watched it recently in a vlog, but it's about a bike race in Bloomington, Indiana, Little 5. And the cutters are the limestone cutters. And so all of the limestone that was used for the fireplaces in Bloomington, like in those houses, my dad used the same people to make the fireplace. So they're literally exact replicas. So in his house that he lives in now, he has an exact replica of the Union Hall fireplace. He also has another fireplace that he replicated. I can't remember what it was, but it's the fireplace that he has in his bedroom. And then my dad has a very, very cool brick fireplace in his kitchen. It's smaller, but it's like, they're all wood-burning fireplaces. It's really cool, and it's like this, it looks like something that you would see like in an old like French or, you know, English movie kind of thing, like, you know, like from the 30s. And then in their basement, now that's a gas fireplace, but in their basement, they have this like huge, like kind of adobe deal going on, because their whole basement is, my dad and my stepmom started going to Santa Fe years ago for artist retreats. My stepmom is a painter and my dad sculpts. They actually were, they became friends with Martin Sheen and his wife, because they went to a lot of these retreats too. And so they went to these artist retreats in Santa Fe. They were like extended retreats, like weeks on end. And so they became kind of obsessed with Santa Fe. My dad used to say that if he retired, he would go to Santa Fe. If, meaning that he'll never retire. But they just kind of fell in love with Santa Fe. And so like they're literally, I like came over there one day, and like it had been like a month since I had been over there, and the entire basement had changed literally in a month. And it was like, you know, at one point it was just like big couch in the corner, and then all of a sudden I come and there's like they had somebody come and build this fireplace. It's this massive adobe fireplace in the corner. And then they have all of this like, you know, Santa Fe artwork and beautiful carpet and this huge like couch, you know, that with like this Native American print on it. And the basement's beautiful, but it just kind of changed overnight. But anyway, I don't know why I was talking about my house. Oh, so I grew up with this like library, and in the corner I had this like, so when you walked in, there was like an Oriental carpet, and then there was like a buffet table, and then the couch was on the other side of it, and the couch faced the fireplace, and there was like a chair, that leather chair that we have in our living room was like in the corner, and then next to one of the bookshelves, and then the other chair was, that leather chair with the ottoman was in the other corner. And I used to sit in there in front of the fireplace, and it had one of those microphones that you like plugged in, you know, into the stereo. And I would sit there and I would do, I mean, like very serious, very, very serious. I did like full legit performances of Tomorrow from Annie. And there was only like 3 musicals that I liked. It was like Annie, My Fair Lady, and Oklahoma. But you know, like had that long cord on it and stuff, you know, like I truly was like very Liza Minnelli. I mean, this, you guys, this is like at age 8, like true story. At age 8, I'd like kick the cord with my, you know, leg, and I'd be like, thank you, you're a wonderful audience. Like I was like very serious about it. Like I look back on that and I think my parents, like, I mean, I did that stuff at my dad's house too. Like I don't know, like my dad, if I ask him today, my dad is so funny. He would just be like, oh yeah, I mean, like, you know, you thought you were Judy Garland and you were 8 years old. You know, you were full cast by yourself, like one man show, you know, of Annie, like out there doing the show. You know, it's so funny when I look back on that. But I took it so seriously, you guys. Like I was very, very serious about it. I remember my mom had these, well, I have them at the house actually now. They're like these crystal cut glasses. And they were like in that room, like on this bar thing that they had. This like bar tray thing, and with like this crystal decanter that I still have. And I can remember like putting Coke in it, you know, like Coca-Cola, and like holding it with the microphone and being like, you know, I'm only in New York. I don't even know where I got this from. Yeah, I don't know where I saw like these stand-up live singing shows, you know, but I would like have the glass in my hand. I mean, very much like Liza Minnelli, you know? And I'd be like, well, I'm only in New York for 2 days, but you guys are the best crowd I've ever seen. So since you have been so kind, I'm gonna do one more encore of Over the Rainbow. I mean, I truly, like 8 years old, you guys, like who was I? I so wanted to be like some cigarette smoking, drink, you know, swilling old actress from Hollywood. Like that's who I wanted to be, you know? God, it cracks me up. It's probably like why a lot of gay guys end up becoming drag queens, because we all were performers when we were little kids like that. And if I wasn't doing that, I was like writing and directing puppet shows, of which I had like maybe, well, my parents bought me puppets when I was a little kid, but I then would have all these stuffed animals that were basically, they weren't really puppets, but I just kind of made them into puppets, you know, and they would just kind of, I would just like hold them and they would do things. I had, when I was growing up, this is such a lonely only child moment, I had probably 30 stuffed animals that I tucked into bed with me every night, and every single one of them had a line, every single one of them had a name, but not just a name, they had a storyline, okay? I mean, there was like Blue Dog, and then there was like Mike, and their names were like real normal stuff, like Mike and Steve and stuff like that too, you know? So Steve was the blue dog, so, like, and I don't know, I can't remember Steve's storyline, but like, it would be something like, Steve's parents died in an Audiobook. They always, it was some reason why they had to come live with me. It was like, Steve's parents died in an automobile accident, and his brothers and sisters all went, I mean, and this was when I was real little, you guys, too, okay? And his brothers and sisters all went to, like, you know, foster care, and so he came to live here, and isn't he the lucky one, because he got to be with, he got to live in the house where all the, you know, the other, it stopped right when I started laughing. Isn't he the lucky one, because he got to live here, and I don't know, I would call it something like, you know, the house of the orphaned children, or something like that. There are always these real desperate storylines, you know. Oh, and of course, at any given time, I was writing a book. I was always writing a book from like a really, really young age. I was so creative. I really was. Well, they did, though. All of them had storylines. You know, so I would say things like, but like if I talk to them, I would say like, you know, why am I going through this lip balm so much tonight? I just keep on reaching for it. It just tastes so good. You know, I would say things like at night when I was going to bed, you know, and I would tuck Steve in and I'd say, Steve, I know what you're going through is real hard, but you're lucky to live here with us now. It's probably because I've been in counseling since I was like 2 or something, you know. My counselor was probably saying that stuff to me. So I was probably role-playing it out to Steve, the dog, the blue dog, you know. My parents did have me in counseling from a real young age, you know, because of the divorce and stuff like that, and they thought it was the right thing to do. I thought it was the biggest waste of money, and I still do, looking back on it. I hated the counselor. I went to this one counselor for a long time. I hated him. And I thought he was mean. And I don't know that my opinion has changed a whole lot in retrospect. He was always like wanting me to play games with him. Like that was his language to get a kid to talk. And I mean, I was young when I saw him. And so we would play games for like an hour. I look back on this and I think, what a boring job for him, you know? And he wasn't really evaluating me, but he was like, or maybe he was, I don't know. But like, we would play a game, and he would, like, I mean, if he had asked me, like, do you want to talk about your parents' divorce, I would have said, okay. And if he would have asked me what I thought, I would have told him, you know, but he never asked. He never once asked. We would play a game, and he would say, okay, if I win a move, then you're going to tell me one thing about, you know, your parents or something like that. And if you win, then you get a piece of candy. It felt so manipulative to me at a young age. It made me not trust him instantly. And the other thing that made me not trust him immediately was when he would, as soon as the session was over, he would call my parents in. Because even though, or whatever parent had brought me, because I can remember it would go back and forth. Like, my mom would bring me sometimes, and my dad would bring me other times. And I even remember what his name is to this day. He would bring my parents into the room to, like, sit and talk to me, or sit and talk to them. So I would go out in the lobby, and my parents would come in. And, like, first session, I was like, so he's basically telling them everything that I said. Like, I was like, oh, never telling him anything again. And I went to him for a long time. And I remember one of my friends at the time, I don't remember how old I was, but I went to him till I was like 11 or something. And I remember one of my friends one time, my little friends, which I had hardly any friends, right? But one of my friends that I must have had, maybe tennis, I don't know. I played tennis, you know, consistently since I was a little kid all the way through. I kind of had tennis friends, like, that I never did stuff with really outside. Well, one I did. I actually see him and his wife around here quite a bit. But I don't, like, see him to hang out, but I see him. No, he came to, like, a birthday, like, I had a little birthday party with a couple friends one year. He came to that. God, that would have been when I was really young. But I don't remember ever having, like, I mean, I had some friends through the years, but they just didn't stay long. Like, they were like, you know, I'd have friends for like a couple weeks or something, or like a couple months, but then it was just, you know, whatever. I was never part of a group, you know. Anyway, I can remember some friend of mine asking me, like, I couldn't do something, or I was gonna miss something, like tennis or something, and they asked me why, and I said, because I had to go to see this doctor or this counselor, and I remember saying, like, I just go because it makes my parents happy. Like, I don't like him, and I don't trust him, and I don't tell him anything. Like, I remember saying that. And I actually think I know who that was that I said it to. My mom played tennis in a tennis league. And so a lot of the kids that were my age that we played tennis together, our moms played tennis together too. And so sometimes we would, like, all of us go out to lunch or something like that. I think that's what it was. Or all of us, like, they would play tennis and we would play tennis. I don't talk much about that on here. That whole tennis world, to grow up in that tennis world, I mean, and it wasn't just my mom. Like, my dad and my stepmom are like, my stepmom was she was a serious tennis player. Like, she was, I think, number one something in the state her senior year in high school. And then she played in leagues as an adult on a national level that won competitions. She was a powerhouse tennis player, and then she got a knee injury. And my dad and my stepmom used to run marathons and stuff like that. Like, I mean, up until not too long ago, like, which is crazy to me. Yeah, and my dad played tennis for fun, casually. But he and my stepmom, I mean, they used to every year they used to go to Wimbledon, the US Open, the French Open, you know, the RCA tennis championships here in Indianapolis. They went to everything for a couple years in a row. And loved it, you know. So I come from, like, a big tennis family. And it's kind of the whole tennis community is kind of a weird community to grow up in on its own. I think it's like any other sport, but because you're like playing by yourself, you're not playing with like a team necessarily. There's a lot more competitiveness, and what's interesting to me is, in retrospect, you know, like you see like momagers or like dads that manage their kids and stuff like that, and they're like, my kid is the best kind of attitude. I don't remember that ever being the case in tennis, and not just with myself, but with other parents. Like, I remember parents being really, really hard on their kids, is what I remember. And tennis is kind of a weird sport in that, like, I remember parents being very hard on their kids about, like, going to conditioning and meeting with their coaches and being on time. Like, a lot of rule stuff, being on time and dressing appropriately and tucking your shirt in. Back then, like, you couldn't dress the way that you could dress today in tennis. Like, that stuff started changing with, like, Pete Sampras and people like that, Bjorn Borg. Like, but back in the day, like, when I first started, even Bjorn Borg, I think, he didn't do a lot of that, but, like, when I started playing, who was the Andre Agassi? Andre Agassi started changing a lot of that stuff. But, like, you know, when I played tennis, it was like you tucked in your shirt. Like, there was very strict rules that came along with tennis. And, you know, I remember, like, my dad being very strict on me about, like, good sportsmanship. And that has a lot to do with why I quit playing completely. Like, I threw my racket. My dad was like, you're done. And, I mean, and I was not 5 years old, you know. I was 15 at the time, 14 I was a freshman, so 14. And I completely lost interest in the sport by that point. I mean, I had played tennis 4 to 7 days a week, you know, forever. But, I just realized I'm like so wide awake right now. But yeah, like, I don't remember, like, you know, like, when I see, like, I listen to conversations with my friends about their kids, and they're like, oh yeah, like, my kid's like the best soccer player, and he has a private coach, and, I don't remember, maybe because I wasn't listening like that, but I don't remember that being the conversations that, like, the people around me had. And I was always on very elite teams, so I would play on, like, a team with, like, 5 other people, 10 people max, and we would all be, like, the best our age in Indianapolis. And I don't remember any of the parents being like that. I remember the parents being like, you were 5 minutes late, you need to go run 5 laps, you know, and then, or, you know, you need to listen to what your coach says, or, you know, like, you could have done better, you know, like, tucking your shirt. Like, I remember it being a lot of that, like, being very hard, and very committed, not just to the sport, but to the representation of who you were as a person out there, you know, and it was kind of a good way, I think, to grow up with a lot of that. And that good sportsmanship, I mean, that was, like, drained into us. That you always shook the person's hand, whether you won or lost. You always shook their hand. You always walked off the court appropriately. I never threw my racket. Never. I threw it one time, and that was it. My dad looked at me and said, you're done, forfeit the match. You're done. I never threw my racket in 10+ years of playing tennis. Never once did I ever throw my racket. That wasn't something that you did, you know? So that was, like, a weird community to kind of, like, I don't know if community is the right word, but that was kind of like a weird environment to grow up in, you know? And I think today it's kind of weird. Like, I have this kind of love-hate relationship with it. So Alex grew up playing tennis too. He played on teams in Venezuela, and he had a coach. He and his brother had a private coach in Venezuela. And so Alex and I, like, 2 summers ago, I still have my rackets and everything in my garage next to my mom's. So Alex and I were like, I mean, we have tennis courts in our neighborhood, so we're like, let's go play. They're really nice tennis courts. So we went down there to play one evening, and it was so weird. It was like, I picked up the racket, and it literally was like yesterday, you guys. Like, I mean, it was like yesterday. Like, I remembered it exactly. Like, it was like no time had gone by. It was weird. And Alex was like, you are really good. And I was like, one thing I'm good at in this world. You know what I mean? But it kind of felt like that a little bit. And But we had so much fun. But you know what is so weird about it is, and like, I needed to do some inventory over this at that time. Like, I realized in my heart, like, I could feel it while I was playing. I had such a resentment against the sport, you know? Partly because I gave up so much of my youth to it. Partly because of how I went out. I never felt like I really, I mean, this is going to sound so stupid when you're talking about a sport, but I really never felt like I had any closure with it. You know, I just was done one day. I just was like, I'm done. I'm done. And I could feel it, just like sitting there playing. Like, I had all these relationship issues with this, but that sport had been like such a huge part of my life for so long. It was so surreal, you know? So Alex and I always say we're gonna play in the summer and get real healthy and start playing a lot, and we don't. But part of it is that the tennis courts are locked, and you have to go to this one woman in our neighborhood to get the key. And the woman that we have to go to is our neighbor Laura's grandmother, who is like the busybody of the neighborhood. And just between you and I don't really even want to go ask for the key, so we just don't go ask for the key, so we never go play tennis. We probably would go more if I need to find out more about that key. I think, I don't know. But like, if you go get the key from her, then like, cause when we were playing, she like walked over and was watching us, and she's like, you know, you guys are good tennis players. She's actually very sweet to us. We got kind of lucky. She's like one of those people that just like really wants somebody to talk to, and when she start talking to her, like I think she appreciates it, and she acknowledges like, hey, you know, like at least he talks to me. And so she and I talk and stuff now. She's real friendly. She's funny. Do you know, like, when you like first meet somebody and you think they're kind of mean, but then you realize that it's just like sarcastic humor and you get it? Like, she kind of like, I think, gets off on being like the old busybody in the neighborhood. Like, she thinks it's kind of funny, you know? But now that I know that she does, because like she'll say something and she'll look at me and she'll kind of smirk, and I'm like, she totally is she's living for this. She thinks this is hilarious, you know? She's so sweet. Well, I don't know that sweet is the right word, but she's nice and she takes care of the neighborhood. You know, one of the things that my mom used to always say to me is like, even though some of these people in the neighborhood would drive her crazy, there was a guy that used to live in our neighborhood. He moved. He was really close with my Uncle Dave, actually, because my aunt and uncle lived like 2 blocks from where we live before they moved into the condo. But my mom would say, you know, like, he would walk around the neighborhood and he would take everybody's newspaper and walk it up to their front door, because like the newspaper comes and they would just like throw it in the driveway. And like in our neighborhood, you have to remember, is older people, so literally the whole neighborhood still gets newspapers. We don't. We're like the only ones. But so he would walk the newspapers up, and if any of like, we have all these carriage lights, you know, we have one on either side of our what do you call it? A carriage light on either side of our garage, and then we have carriage lights up near our door, and some people have 2 carriage lights by their door. And so if any of the lights are out, he would replace them. And now she does that. And then they walk in the neighborhood, and there's also like a landscaping person that watches your front yard, and if it needs to be like cleaned up, they come, like, because we have a landscaping people that come and they do like the pruning and the trees, and they mow the lawn like every other week or every week or something. I don't know, but how often. But if like your walk and stuff like that needs to be done, they like get on you. They're like, you need to clean this up. And the neighborhood is beautiful. It really, really is. And my mom would say, you know, she'd say it drives me crazy sometimes, but she always keeps the pool spotless. The pool's always clean. You know, they maintain the neighborhood, and they really do. They really care a lot about the neighborhood, you know? And it's, I mean, Tanya, when she comes over, she's like, Peter, your neighborhood is gorgeous. She's like, I mean, the trees, we have mature trees that have been there for, well, God, probably older than 40 years now, you know? I mean, they're gorgeous trees, and we have like little woods behind our back, and you can see through right now, but in the winter you can't see through. But there's woods all around the neighborhood. There's lakes, you know, it's a beautiful neighborhood, and they help maintain that. And so, I mean, if the payoff is you have to deal with a little bit of busybodies every once in a while, I'm okay with that, you know, to have a really nice neighborhood to live in. And it feels safe. They have this whole, like, neighborhood watch ordeal set up, and, you know, we get the newsletters that come out every month, and everybody's on everybody's, like, phone, you know, we have, like, a little phone, what do you call it, directory, and everybody knows everybody's name, and it's always interesting because, like, so our neighbors, not Laura, the other neighbor, and I, we both have, like, real small driveways. And so, like, if somebody, like, will park in my driveway, like, the guy across the street who's there, like, literally 24 hours a day, he'll be like, I just want to let you know there was a little blue car that came in there and parked. Do you know who that was? And I'm like, no. I'm like, it was probably, you know, so-and-so as the neighbors. He's like, okay, well, I was watching pretty closely. He was like, I think they did go in there, but I'm not sure. And he's so cute. He's so sweet. And so he, like, picks up our packages for us when we're out of town. And he was like, yeah, one day. He's, like, in great shape. His yard is gorgeous. So he used to be a landscape architect. He owned his own firm. So just imagine what his yard looks like. But anyway, his wife's sick. He's, like, home with her all the time. So he's like, yeah, one day you guys were gone. You got 3 packages. I walked across the street 3 times, 3 packages. Like, okay. But no, people are just so friendly in our neighborhood, you know. It didn't used to be that way for a long time, but, like, people are now. I'm kind of after being in Phoenix for the weekend. I'm excited to, like, get my patio going and get it nice and, you know, all that kind of stuff. I'm ready to, you know, bring out the chair cushions and, I was just thinking about the rain on those cushions. I've got to figure out what to do this year. Maybe we can get covers for them or something. I don't know. But, and get a bunch of plants out there and stuff again. I'm excited about getting the patio nice. So, all right, you guys, listen, I'm going to get off here now. I'm going to try to make this outro quick today. Because I said the other day I wasn't going to do the Lord of the Rings, and I did the Lord of the Rings plus some. So, anyway, I hope you guys are having an amazing, what is tomorrow, Wednesday? Unless you have other plans. I hope you're having an amazing Wednesday unless you have other plans. But like I always say, don't have other plans. Make the most of your day. Do something fun today. Start a new Netflix show. Do something exciting. Take a positive risk in your life today. Do something today that will, make yourself proud when you look back on it 5 or 10 years from now, a year from now, 2 years from now, 6 months from now, 6 weeks from now, 2 weeks from now. Just do something that will make yourself proud. And if nobody else told you this today, I love you. Make sure that you look at yourself in the mirror every single day and you do your daily positive affirmations and you say, I love you, you are valuable, you are important, you matter, you are worthy of good things. Good things are coming your way, and you are talented, you are funny, you are blessed, you are handsome, and you are beautiful. And today is going to be an amazing day, and 2020 is going to be the best year yet. Full of opportunity, success, and all of the things you want in your life. And, let's see what else. Most importantly, make sure that most importantly, pick out somebody in your life and let them know how important they are to you. Just call them up and say, hey, I just want to let you know you really mean a lot to me. And I love you and I care a lot about you. And don't forget to practice random acts of kindness. And like I always say, don't tell anyone. And thank you guys so much for watching this vlog. I love you. You mean the world to me. Thank you for watching this every single day. And allowing me to have a place to just ramble and talk. So I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye. Love ya.